Welcome back to the Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Ponte, where we will hear stories of incredible people thriving against all odds. And my hope is that we can all see how life is always happening for us, even when we are the less than 1% chance. Hey, friends! Welcome back to the Against All Odds podcast, the Less Than 1% Chance with your host, Maria Aponte. And today we have a guest. I'm so excited. So this is one of my best friends. She is someone I met through the company that I partner with, and she partners with them as well. And we met each other through I want to say maybe a retreat or an event or something. And from there, like, I couldn't imagine my day-to-day life without this beautiful human being in my life. So I wanted to bring her on because she has got a mega against all odds story, and it's given me hope when I just felt defeated, and her belief and her trust that everything is happening for her is so powerful. So I wanted to gift you guys with this amazing story and this amazing human. So this is my friend Amanda Trojan. So welcome. I'm so excited. I told you a few weeks ago we were at an event together, and I told her, I was like, I'm doing a podcast. And she's like, yeah, let's go. And she kind of gave me some pointers, and because she has her own podcast. And then I was like, I want you to be my first interview. And she's like, all right, let's go. So she is my first interview.
Don't like, you offer me an opportunity to like talk, and I'm like, let's freaking go.
Yes.
Let's go. I love it.
So she is in the car, so she's not going to be like full on. If you're watching on YouTube, it's not going to be full on video of her, but you will be able to see who we talk about, because her little like fighter is right back there and sleeping. So Amanda,
you know what's funny? Before we go into this, since this is a conversation, girl.
Yeah.
What's funny is when you were talking about like how we met and connected, I can't even tell you how we met. Like, I don't even remember.
Me
like,
either.
You know what I mean? It's like there are moments in your life where like God brings people into your life, and you were like, I don't even remember how that happened. But then you were like, I can't even imagine my life like without you. You know what I mean? And like when you were like, you're trying to figure it out. I'm like, I'm sitting here thinking, I don't even remember. I don't even know. Like, but it's so cool that 6 years later, 5-6 years later, who even knows when, that we've been like in this together. It's just so cool. So cool.
I agree. I totally believe that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and and when it's a lifetime person, you don't need to have a pinpoint moment in time, because they are there forever. And absolutely. I definitely feel like I don't remember how we met. I seriously, I don't know what event it was at. I don't know any of it. I just feel like I immediately met you, and it was like this instant connection. And I don't imagine life without you in it. So
that's so cool.
Give us a little bit of your background, your story, where you came from, why against all odds.
Like Maria said, I have been a partner in the same company that she has partnered with. Now I'm almost on my 8 years. And really, I guess my against all odds story started basically when I got married 8 years ago. When I got married, I'm an older individual, but still sexy AF.
Yes.
I'll be 44 this year. And I got married. I met my husband when I was like 35. We got married when, I think I was 36. And after we got married, we struggled with infertility. And so, my doctor was like, give it 6 months. If you don't, if you're not finding yourself pregnant within 6 months, it may be a good idea to go see a fertility specialist. So we had tried for 6 months. I was looking at natural fertility info. Being healthy was a top priority because I knew that being healthy was going to benefit me in that journey, taking care of myself, eating better food. So I was losing weight. I was becoming healthier, but still could not get pregnant. So my husband and I went to see a fertility specialist. I had to go through all this testing. Come to find out, I had a blocked fallopian tube. My right fallopian tube was blocked. Went through testing, all these things, still was like not getting pregnant. The fertility doctor was like, you're a really great candidate for intrauterine inseminate, track your cycles, do the ovulation kits. When you ovulate, we'll have you come in, we'll take a sample of your husband's sperm and we'll like get it all up in there. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And from our first IUI, we conceived our son, Raphael, which we didn't know that he was Raphael at that time, but we conceived and we were elated. I did have a scare about 6 weeks in where I had some bleeding, but come to find out, it was just something that happened. The baby was fine. And then at about 20 weeks in, we go in for the mid-anatomy scan. And I'm looking at this baby like, oh my gosh, this baby is so amazing. And we leave, and she had written the ultrasound tech. They were like, go see the doctor. I'm like, okay, that's weird. And they're like, we want you to go in and have a fetal echocardiogram to check on the baby's heart. Well, I was like, well, that's weird. They didn't tell me anything. They didn't tell me they suspected anything. They said they just wanted an in-depth look. So a couple weeks later, we went to the hospital, had this fetal echo. They did a more in-depth ultrasound, and they had found some concerning things that were going on with Raphael. Well, we knew he was a boy from the first ultrasound. So we went and they were like, okay, they have these concerning things they saw in the ultrasound. They saw that he had clubbed hands, like clenched fists. They were like, he has extra digits on his hands and on his toes. And they said they saw something with his kidney. And they were like, well, we suspect that he has a genetic abnormality. They said, we suspect that he has either trisomy 13 or trisomy 18. And I'm like, okay. So my husband and I are like, well, what does this mean? And they're like, I'm like, what do families, usually do? What is your experience with this? And the very first thing out of their mouths was, well, most families terminate. And I was like, well, that's not an option for us. Like, that is absolutely not an option. I see his heart beating. I see him moving. That is not an option for us. And so they're like, well, we can do another ultrasound in about 10 weeks. But, we had to go see genetic counseling, all the things. So imagine your first baby, you've struggled with infertility, and then you find out that your baby has a heart defect that was proven and a suspected genetic abnormality. And silly me, I get in the car, I'm already upset, right? I'm holding back tears on, the ultrasound table, talking to these doctors, and silly me, don't ever Dr. Google. I Googled trisomy 13, trisomy 18. For people who are new to this and not, maybe you're like, I don't know what trisomy is. I don't know what this is. Trisomy 18 and trisomy 13, a trisomy is an extra chromosome on a certain gene. So there's many different forms of trisomy. We are all born with two. Trisomy is a third one. So Down syndrome is an extra 21st chromosome. That's Down syndrome. That's the most common trisomy.
So
trisomy
each of us has two chromosomes per number,
gene.
Right? Yeah, per gene.
Yes. So okay. I think there's 21, and then you have your sex gene, which is XX or XY. And then I think the boys are XX and the girls are XY.
Yeah.
So he had an extra one. We didn't know what it was because we didn't do genetic testing. They were like, you could do an amniocentesis, but in my spirit, I was like, I didn't feel like that was the right way to go. I was just like, Let's trust, let's figure out what's going on, let's see how this goes. And I just didn't, it didn't sit well in my spirit when they were like, we can do an amnio and do it. I was like, something just didn't feel right. And so we held off on the testing because to us, no matter what, we were going to love him and we were going to take care of him. But it was scary, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's scary to be like, it's my first baby. We had an IUI. What a beautiful gift that we conceived on our first IUI, because I know there's a lot of women who don't. And then to find out that there's like something wrong with your child, like there is a medical issue with your child. Girl, when I tell you that my spirit, my soul was tested in that moment, going through the unknown, it was one of the hardest experiences that I have ever walked through. And I've walked through some crazy stuff up until then. Since then, I've walked through some crazy things, but the fear, the unknowing, that was so hard.
Yeah.
So about, gosh, went through my pregnancy, things, I was physically feeling well. They were like, well, you taking care of yourself is always good for the baby anyway. And while he's inside, he's doing great. He was still alive. Like, I would hold my breath on every appointment because I was like, is he going to be alive? Like, what's going on? He was extremely tiny.
So can I ask you, what are the chances of him surviving the whole pregnancy?
Oh gosh, I couldn't, I don't even know offhand if I could give you a statistic. Not many babies survive making it to birth. Yeah. I've had the pleasure of meeting many of these babies that are now kids and teenagers and even adults, but it's rare. I couldn't give you a pinpoint statistic. I can point you to anyone who wants to get more research or information on the different trisomies. The support organization for trisomy, if you go to trisomy.org, they have tons of information for caregivers, for parents. If you're pregnant and you get a diagnosis like this, so much great research out there. And there are more doctors now that are partnering with families in our trisomy community that actually are like, let's give these kids a shot. I can tell you that more males out of female babies with trisomy, more males are born than female.
Okay.
When Raphael was born, he was very, very tiny. He was about 3.5 pounds, and he was in the NICU for 8 months.
Did you take him full term?
I did, actually. My water actually broke while I was working out. And it was really funny how it happened. My water broke while I was working out. I was at 37 weeks and 6 days. And then I went in. He was so stubborn. If this gives you any idea about my son, he is so stubborn, he would not come out. He was holed up at the top of my uterus. He was not coming out. He was not budging. I wasn't having contractions. They gave me Pitocin. I was dialed up to an 8 on Pitocin. They're like, how do you feel? Maybe a little cramping. Like, I feel amazing. So I started to hemorrhage, and he was going into distress. And it was almost 24 hours after my water had broken. They were like, we're going to have to take you in for a C-section. And I was like, at that point in time, like, I just want my baby to be here. I want a healthy delivery. I want him to be okay, and I want to be okay.
Yeah.
But even in that moment, as I don't know, so many times throughout my pregnancy, as many times as there was the fear of the unknown, more often than not, I felt this peace. I felt this peace of, it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
And this is before, this is way before the life is happening for me, not to me. Like, this is before then. But I knew that that God was bigger than any diagnosis.
Yeah.
I knew that my faith had to be in a higher power that was in control of the entire universe. And I was like, for me, God, no matter what, I know that you love this little boy more than I love him. And I know that you love me. And having that knowledge and having that faith, I think really was what helped me walk through just the whole difficulties of that pregnancy. I mean, there were many times I had told John, my husband, I was like, maybe we shouldn't even have the baby shower. Like, who knows if he's even, and John was like,
snap back.
Where is that? Not that.
Yeah.
Where is that coming from? And now, if I could look back and tell myself anything, I'd be like, where is that voice coming from? Is that the voice of truth, of hope, of potential, of possibility, of faith? Or is that, the voice of scarcity and doubt and fear? And now I know how to kind of channel it, but it was amazing walking through that. And I think so often we go through really crappy stuff in life. Like there's the moments where you're like, yeah, you go through those little annoyances, and those can be like, they can be a pain in the butt. But when you go through something that's devastating, and you come through on the other side, and you were like, I can't even believe that I made it through that. And that's where we continue to draw on our strength, because we're always going to have things that happen. Prayerfully, for everyone who's listening, like, they're not as always devastating. But for some people, it like, I had devastating moments after that, right? Like we lived in the hospital for 8 months. We almost lost him a couple times because, of his airway issues, or after his first heart cath, when he had his second heart cath, where he had like all this blood in his lungs, and he had water in his lungs, and, we didn't know what was going to happen. We were like, oh my, like, it was crazy. Then, getting through that and coming home, and then, you go through a pandemic, and, you have a kid with a trach, you have a kid who's on a ventilator, you're like, what happened? Like, this is so crazy. And then I had miscarriages after that. And it's like, how many times can someone walk through something? But I feel like anytime we have the chance to let our trials grow us, and we look at it from a place of, what is this trying to teach me? How can I grow through this? What is this right now? What can I lean into instead of running away from? I think that changes everything. So the next time something happens, we're able to go, okay, I can draw on the strength of what I did the last time that got me through it, and I can pull it into this situation.
It gives you like evidence.
Yes.
Evidence of your strength, and evidence of like, oh, well, give me a moment. Because it's devastating in that moment, and you go through all the emotions of that. But then you take a moment and you take a deep breath, and you're like, wait, but I've walked through this, and I've walked through this, and I've gotten through it, and I'm still here, and I have this new trial and this new obstacle, and I'm fearful of what happens. However, hopeful that everything that does happen is going to make me better.
Yes. And, I think for me, and for anyone that, calls themselves a Jesus follower, that there is a point in time where we can't draw on our own strength. There is a time where we have to lean and be so dependent on God that He is like, only I can give you the strength right now, because my own strength is not enough. Right? Like, in my moments of weakness, in my broken down moments of weakness, there, like, even my best efforts to try to get through something are not going to be good enough. I really, it's relying on something, someone who is more powerful, who sees the bigger picture.
Yeah.
We see this very small view
Mm-hmm.
when God sees this really big picture. And that, I think that is the piece that can give people comfort when they're walking through that trial, to say, okay, I can only see what I can see in my limited view, and I can only do what I can do with
Yep.
my limited scope of knowledge, with my limited scope of experience, like with my limited skills and resources. I can only do what I can do. Other than that, I have to let go and really say, okay, God, I'm going to trust you with this, and I'm going to trust that you're going to work it out. And even if it doesn't work out the way we want it to,
Yeah.
knowing and having that understanding that he loves you so much that he's not like, we may not get the result we want, but he loves us so much that he has a better idea. He has a better plan. And that was really something with Raphael, that we were like, you know what? If God decides that he wants to take Raphael home, I got to be okay with that, because I know that when Jesus does come to take Raphael, trisomy 18 has nothing on him anymore. He's going to be whole. He's going to be healed. He's going to be in heaven. You know, it's like, what, he's going to be with Jesus. You know, it's the same thing. Like, I think it just puts life in perspective, right? Yeah. Like, thankfully, there's not a lot of individuals, mamas, that have to walk through life with this, I don't even want to say a fear, but some of it is a fear, but with this knowing that your child could very well pass away before you do.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that not everyone has to experience that.
Yeah.
But when you do experience that, it puts things in a different perspective.
Absolutely. And
yeah,
I've like, I remember your time in the hospital. I remember when you told us that he had these things that you didn't know anything about, but like you were walking through it, and as a community coming together and just praying and making and keeping you and him and your family top of mind, and the fact that we continue to watch you, like, it's inspiring. It's inspiring. I remember you working out in the hospital. I remember being tagged in those videos, and I'm like, this woman, like, when you feel like crap is hard, and she's over here, like, not even like, how many surgeries has Rafi had already?
Oh gosh, he had his first surgery at 2 weeks old. He had a heart cath. He had a tracheostomy. He had a G-tube placed, and they went inside of his abdomen because his intestines were malrotated. So that was like his first. He had the cath first, and then, the cath first, and then a week later, at 3 weeks, he had the trach. And then after that, he had another heart cath. Then he had open heart surgery at 7 months. And then he goes in like every 6 months to get his ear cleaned, get a bronch. Gosh, I mean,
We've seen that.
And it's funny that you said, like, me working out, and I think about that. I'm like, who's that nut job that's like working out in the hospital? But what,
Kept you going.
it kept me going. And I think that when you have something, like, being against all odds is about, like, what am I going to do to thrive in this moment? Like, sure, I could just survive, right? I could just survive and just try to make it day by day. But why survive when we can just thrive? Being against all odds means, like, I'm being against all odds. And really, it's not even me. It's this kid.
Yeah,
It's him.
he's
It's
amazing.
him. He, him and God he is so cool. Like, God is so cool. Those two have this relationship that I can't even begin to explain to you. But I had a follower on Instagram. She messaged me personally and she said, I just want to tell you that you can see the last time we were in the hospital back in April when he had pneumonia. And she was like, you can just see, like, I bet you him and Jesus just have these best talks.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I believe that. I believe that because, where some people see, hi, baby, I love you. He's like, stop talking to me like I'm a baby. I'm almost 6. Yes, he is almost 6, by the way. Let's talk about being against all
Yes,
odds.
all odds.
The child, because we could talk about everything forever. The child who I was 32 weeks pregnant. I was at a OB appointment and we were at a different hospital and I was like, hey, we're waiting for them to have this meeting with us. We were going to have this big care team meeting where we were going to discuss, like, with the pediatric cardiologist, what his heart situation was going to look like. We were going to talk with, like, NICU people, all this. We were talking with the OBs, make sure. And she was like, oh, honey, and I'll never forget this day. She said, oh, honey, they're not going to have a meeting with you. We're going to, if he is born alive, okay, triggered me, pissed me off. If he is born alive, we're going to send you home on comfort care. We're not going to do anything
Like
for his
comfort
heart
care.
defect.
Wait a second. Comfort care, like hospice
Like,
type of.
like hospice, we're going to let him die.
Oh
We're
my
going to go ahead
gosh.
and send you home with this tiny baby and basically just let him die. We're not going to do any interventions. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to provide him comfort so that he dies. And I was like,
Oh hell no.
You
talking to
let me
me? I'm mama.
not,
Mama.
I didn't even realize I wore my mama shirt on today. But let me tell you, that little boy, as tiny as he was probably, he was born at 3.5 pounds. So he was probably 2-something pounds. He kicked the crap out of me. I felt it right here. He kicked the crap out of me. And I was like, hell no. And I was like, absolutely not. And I looked at her and I was like, I started to cry and she puts her hand on my leg and she said, and maybe she meant well.
Yeah.
Maybe she meant well. I want to think the best. I'm going to think the best and think that she meant well because the next breath she said, you should get in touch and look at the support organization for trisomy. They have a website. You should connect with them. And I did. And on the website, and I connected with other people on Facebook. I was looking at trisomy families. They had these Facebook groups. I was connecting with them. And they were like, you need to go find another doctor and you need to go find another hospital. And they were like on the website, I put in Michigan, and they had said that there were 2 hospitals local to me that were trisomy friendly, and it was not the one I was at. And so I was like, well, one of them was the University of Michigan. It was their children's hospital. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm going there. I didn't want to go to the one in Detroit. And that's a whole nother story. I had a friend who worked there. She was like, oh no, girl, you don't want to go there. So don't go there. So I went to Mott and I cried. I gave myself that time to grieve. I talked to my friend. She has a doctorate in psychology. She was also pregnant at the same time. Our kids are just a few days apart. And she was on the phone with me crying. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna drive home. I was driving home. I was construction. I was a hot mess. I was a blubbering mess. She talked to me all the way through home. We were crying together. I gave myself the night. And then the next day I said, I'm pulling my crap together right now because this little boy is important to me. And I called the cardiology department, the pediatric cardiology department over at Mott. And I said, I'm pregnant. I'm like 32 weeks pregnant. I gave her the story. And I said, the hospital I was at told me they were not going to do interventions. I'd like a second opinion. And because when I said, well, what about U of M? Because they had talked about that at the former hospital I was at. And she was like, oh, they're not going to do anything either. And I thought that was interesting. So when I called pediatric cardiology at Mott, the receptionist was like, I can't believe that they told you that. And I was like, girl, me neither. And she was like, we absolutely, like, we need you to come in. And so I went in. They scheduled me with the fetal diagnostic center. I went in there and I had the best care I have ever received in my life. We met with the geneticist. We met with the doctors. I had been praying. Remember how I said I didn't have the amniocentesis at that time? I had been praying about it. I talked to my mother-in-law, which that's a whole nother story about the prayer grannies. You know about the prayer grannies are amazing. Get you some prayer grannies. And if you need some, hit me up, because Rafi's prayer grannies are always on it. I'd been praying about it. She'd been praying about it. And I was like, I really feel in my spirit that I should have this amniocentesis now, and I should have it done at Mott. And she was like, I think so too. Because I was like, then I will know exactly what it is. There's not going to be any guesswork. Right. But so the thing with the amnio was like, there's risks with amniocentesis too. And so I had to weigh the risks, but I felt very confident. I felt it in my spirit. I was like, we're going to do this. We were at Mott, met with the fetal diagnostic people. They were amazing. They were so great. Had the amnio. About 10 days later, we did in fact get the diagnosis that it was in fact trisomy 18, which has a better diagnosis than trisomy 13, but still very small chance.
Yeah. I think I had Googled it. I had Googled it, and it was something like 5% of kids born with trisomy 18 live past the first year.
Yes. And that does sound right. That's one of the ones that's one of the ones that's the soft. Now, those are for kids that do not have medical interventions done. So the percentage increases. And I want to say, and again, if you go to trisomy.org, they have so much information there, but I believe it's 10% of kids that have medical interventions with trisomy 18 live past the age of 5. And he will be 6 in October. And it's not been, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up anybody's butt and be like, it's been the easiest road. But I'll tell you what, the amount of joy that this child brings into our lives, he is funny. He is joyful. He is living his best life. He goes to school. He has a younger sister who is like a trip and a younger brother who's a trip, but he plays with them.
Sassy.
He is sassy. When I say he is stubborn, he is so stubborn. Like, I think that people have this idea, and so did I, when the discussion about tracheing him after he was born, we found out he had severe airway issues, which is very common in kids with trisomy 18 and 13. And his airway was literally collapsing on itself. It wasn't that his brain wasn't telling him to breathe, because he also has Dandy Walker malformation. So, okay, again, with the against all odds, tetralogy of Fallot, which is a very rare heart defect, along with trisomy 18, which is a rare genetic disorder, plus Dandy Walker malformation, which is a very rare brain disorder. And it's crazy. Like, you're like, it's crazy. And he is like literally still here. But, you think like, okay, he's going to need a trach. Well, he may need to be on the ventilator, and he was on the ventilator, but the ventilator was not breathing for him unless he had surgery and was like highly sedated. Yeah. He's always breathed on his own. Like, I think when we think of vents, we think of like it's a life-saving measure, and it was in his case. It helped keep his airways open, but he was on like BiPAP support. He was on like a CPAP. It just went to his trach and gave him pressure support to breathe. It wasn't like, oh, he's on this vent because it's breathing for him and he needs it to live, or he's brain dead. No, like, you see him back there kicking his feet right now. He's looking at his hands. He's just hanging out. Like, this kid brings so much life. And when doctors and people are like, well, he has a disability. Kids like that, they don't, they're incompatible with life. That is something that we have
They
heard and a
discount.
lot. They discount these kids. They discount my God. And I'm like, we're not going to do that. But I'm like, why? You know what I mean? Like,
Give them a
every
chance.
child deserves a chance.
Yeah.
Give them a chance. If he was like, I don't want this, if he, like I said, we left it between Raphael and God. And if Raphael would have been like, you know what, it's time for me to go, then we would have like peacefully let him go. But this kid fought and he keeps fighting. Like, I'm gonna let him write his own story. I'm not gonna be that one that's gonna write the story for him.
You don't even know. Like, this titi over here, this auntie over here is like so in love with this kid. And I got to meet him a few times, but he had just gotten out of the hospital. Right?
Girl, we broke out. As soon as we got out of the hospital, we were like, okay, we're going to Indianapolis. Like, people were like, you're crazy. You're for traveling. And I was like, we gave him life so he could have a life. We didn't want to. That's why, right? Like, I know there's some people who sit holed up in their house. And I'm like, why do that? I don't want to sit holed up in my house. I want this boy to live. Like, I want him to experience life. As soon as we got out of the hospital, I was like, come on, boy, we about to go. We went to Indianapolis. He had his helmet on and you took a picture. I was like, it was so fun.
I still have
He's
that
been
picture.
on a cruise. Like, this homie's been international. How many, like, how many kids, that go on cruises and stuff? And like, he is living his best life. He likes being in the pool. He likes swimming. Like, he is like, come on.
He is the cutest. I just love him.
Best.
It goes to show you like how it's literally just one step in front of the other, and having faith that you're just walking through it, and
You're just walking through it.
And there is that light, and there is that chance that it's all gonna work out, and it's all gonna be purposeful, and it's all gonna happen for you and not to you. And I mean, you and I have the same mindset coach, so we're trained by the same person. However, if you look at things, I mean, she could have very well been life is happening to me, oh my gosh, my son, and taken that victim mentality, because many people do. And instead, you have become a advocate for these children, and you've built a community, and it's completely inspired so many people. He's inspired so many people, but he wouldn't have been able to do that if he didn't have a mama like you. And I feel like that is just so powerful, and I'm just honored to be a part of your life in any way, but even more honored that we are so close, and that I
absolutely,
like, we were at that event and we were sleeping right next to each other.
I'm in bed with Maria, and she just was like, I was like, I don't even know how Maria's sleeping like this, but I'm like moving all around. It's so funny. It's so funny.
We have so much fun. But I mean,
it's so good.
It's just so powerful. And I couldn't have thought, like, I seriously, and I told you, I can't think of anybody better to give an against all odds story than you and Rafi's story. You inspire me every day. And when I feel like life is just like, okay, wait a second, Amanda's dealing with this and this and this, and I could handle what I'm dealing with.
Amanda's got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And it's so funny because I didn't wake up one day and be like, you know what? I think I want to be a mom of a, medically complex kid and like advocate for him and like change the world and, inspire people. That literally was like not even my thought. I think a lot. What you laughing at back there? He thinks this is the best ever.
It is the best. He's like, but it's really, don't have to deal with my brother and sister. This is great.
They're in the house. He's like, I know it's coming as soon as mom opens this garage door. But really, if I could encourage anyone who's listening, we don't know, right? You don't know what life is going to bring you. But really, if you can have this perspective and know, I'm not going to tell you to not have feelings in the moment. When you're going through something that's really hard, that's devastating, you're going to have feelings, and that's okay. It is okay to have feelings. It is okay to be like, this sucks. This is terrible. I hate this. But give yourself that moment, get it out, and then say, okay, I can't change it. What can I do?
Yeah.
What can I do? And that was one thing. It really causes you, I know we've mentioned it on here before, just like, it's a perspective shift. And maybe that thing that is devastating is going to propel you into this next level version of yourself that God has created you to be. I always talk about a lot about how your tests become your testimonies and your trials become your triumphs. And the things that we learn when we choose to, in those moments of hard, in those moments of pain, those things that we decide to learn are going to be those things that carry us, that maybe somebody needs to hear. And that was one thing that when I was walking through it, and I had people pouring into me, I had other, of course, our family in our coaching community, but I also, I had to stop being afraid to ask for help,
Yes.
to look for people outside of my network that I knew that could help me on this journey. And that took a lot of letting my walls down and being
Courage.
vulnerable and courage. It's those courage spikes to say, hey, I need help. I reached out to other moms that had kiddos with trisomy 18, and I was asking questions, and I was like, what does this look like? They're saying this. What does this mean? And, having those people that connected me with other people that ended up connecting me with this incredible family here locally in Michigan that connected me with the doctor that saved Raphael's life and was like, nope, it's an airway issue, we're going to trach him, like, who connected me with that. And now having this incredible friends that now, like, doing that now when people reach out to me and they're like, my baby's 1 year old, or I just got this diagnosis, or, I have people who message me and say, hey, like, my friend just got a diagnosis that, they did a amnio, or they're seeing, trisomy 13 or trisomy 18, and I'm sending them, your story or your page so they can see Raphael, and do you mind being talking to them? And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm like, you give people my phone number, you give them my Facebook, my Instagram, I'm always willing to share. Those are the things. Somebody needs you. Somebody needs the version of you that you are growing into as you walk through this trial. And I hope that encourages someone. It's not all for nothing. A lot of times we're like, well, life sucks, and, why is this happening to me? And it's like, but what if it's not? What if it really is an opportunity for you to grow and to like use your gifts and your knowledge and your experience to help someone else? And really, it's a blessing. Yeah. It's a blessing to know that I walked through some really hard things so that when people are like, I'm struggling, I can say, how can I help?
Yeah. Because
I help?
it's so hard to ask for it. And instead of like waiting for someone to come to that courage spike, you're there before that. And because you walked through it and you understand. And what if? I think it's the what if, like, what if we can completely change the narrative of this story?
Absolutely.
It'll be
what if we got out of our heads and we really started like speaking and acting and feeling out of our hearts and going like, my head is telling me that, yeah, this sucks and that this is happening to me, and this always happens to me. I always do this. This always sucks. My life sucks. I know. And I do too. Like, I'm not perfect, right? Yeah. I think that's the one thing, is that it's not about being perfect, but it's about like catching yourself and
Yeah.
being like, okay, like
Like catching that. Like, wait, wait, wait,
catching it.
wait, wait, wait.
Hold on,
Hold
hold
on a
on. What
minute.
is this going to teach me? Yep. What is this going to teach me?
Like,
What can I learn
let me
through
get out of
this?
here and let me go into here and
Yep.
let me go to that heart center and just
Yep.
know that
Yep.
it's all happening for me.
Yep. Because the Bible says, out of an abundance of the heart, right? Our mouth speak. We start to flow these things, and it's like if you have this gratitude and that just is overflowing from your heart. Like, just imagine like what you can accomplish from that place of being in that pain.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had a conversation with my little cousin and I told her, like, we grow from pain. We don't grow from pleasure. We grow from
Mhm.
pain. And the moment that we learn how to be grateful for that pain,
Mhm.
like everything shifts. Everything.
Absolutely. And you think about it where it's like, you think about a little kid, and when kids are little, they have these growing pains, right? And their bodies hurt. And it's because their bones are growing and they're stretching, and these babies are like, my elbows, my shoulders, my legs, I'm in pain. But that growing pain helps them to be bigger, helps them to be stronger. And if we have that mindset about ourselves going, okay, this is just a growing pain.
Yep.
It may be the suckiest freaking growing pain ever, but it's a growing pain,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna be stronger. And it's repeat, repeat, repeat over and over and over again. And the more we do it, the more we realize that it's like a muscle. You're building it to get stronger. Then the easier it becomes to be like, okay, I acknowledge that I'm in the suck. This is a growing pain, but now I have the opportunity to turn this into something different.
Now let's go. Let's do
Now let's
something about it.
go.
Oh my gosh, I just love you. I love your story. I love Mr. Raffi back there. He's over there like, like we're just doing our thing. And thank you so much. I
Thank
honor
you.
our friendship in such a
Absolutely.
like special way, and I just again, I knew that you had to be my first interview, and
I love you.
I love you and thank you so much for having this conversation with me.
I love you.
Yeah, Mr.
Raphael,
Ravi, thank you
is
for
happy
being a
about it.
part of this.
Say thank you. Say
Mwah.
thanks, TT.
Titi
Oh,
loves
he's
you.
just my
Oh,
he's back
oh,
there going like this. He's back there going like this. He's saying
I
thank
love
you.
it. I love it. I love
Thank
it.
you. Yes, thank
Um,
you for having us. We are grateful. I mean, so thankful that you wanted to do this with us. Yay.
Yes. All right. Well, you guys, if you took anything from this, comment in the podcast and YouTube, wherever you're watching or listening to this, and share it. People need to hear these stories that are just going against the odds and figuring out that it all has purpose. So, with that, I thank you and I hope you have an amazing day. Peace out. Love your life.